Hello, everyone, and welcome to Pop Talks, Power of Partnership, Multi-Generational Pop Teams. I'm Jim Lawson. I'm the Manager of Outreach Development here at ABC, the American Board for Certification in Orthotics, Prosthetics, and Orthotics, and I have the honor today of moderating this session. Now, today's continuing education course focuses on understanding generational differences in order to build effective partnerships among veterans of the workforce, recent graduates, and everyone else in between. Now, before we dive in, we have a few programming notes. Let me go ahead and hit these. We have plenty of time for Q&A, so please feel free to share your questions in the Q&A box throughout the discussion. We'll get those at the end of the presentation. Now, this is one in a series of 3 Pop Talks. The series is worth 3.75 Category 1 business credits, or that would be 1.25 credits per session itself. So be sure to take the quiz at the end of this course for your continuing education credits. Now, if you've missed the other 2 Pop Talks, there's a link in the chat for the recordings of the other 2, and we'll remind you about that again a little later on. With that, all that out of the way, I'd like to introduce you to our guest speaker today. Tracy Gniewek is the president, and I love this title, and chief people strategist at TJHR Consulting. She brings 30 years of experience to leading human resources teams and advising executive leadership. Her work helps companies streamline operations, improve workflows, and build high-performing teams. Now, she's also very involved in local nonprofit community in Las Vegas, where she is based. I am very pleased to have Tracy with us here today to share her expertise. Tracy, I'm now going to turn it over to you. Welcome.
Thank you, Jim, for that really kind introduction. It's great to see you all, see you all. I'm really excited to be here today to talk about how curiosity creates connection in the workplace and how understanding generational differences within your organization and on your work teams and even at home with your patients or clients will positively impact your business wellness. So think about when we were little kids. Gosh, children, we were asking questions all the time, right? Mommy, what's this? Daddy, what's this? And repeatedly ask the questions. We were born to be curious beings. And it seems like over time, I don't know if it's because of social norms, we kind of started to refrain from asking as many questions and being curious about one another. And I really think that's unfortunate because I really believe that curiosity is the key to building rapport, building trust in our relationships. So what is curiosity? Curiosity is our natural desire to learn, explore, and understand the world around us. It's the fuel behind every question we ask, every breakthrough we make, and every meaningful connection that we have. So, as you see on the slide, there's that little brain asking the who, what, where, when, why, and even how. I remember being like in 2nd grade, right? And when they were teachers would tell us, in order to understand a story, make sure you ask these key questions. And it's like riding a bike. Sometimes these things should still stay in our repertoire, even as we become professionals and leaders in our organizations. And as a fun fact, research shows that curiosity does boost engagement, problem solving, and collaboration amongst teams, and even makes us live longer. So who wouldn't want that? Why should leaders be curious? Now, I really consider that everybody on this call is a leader. So some of us lead teams in our organizations, some lead teams at home, some lead our families, and anyone that contributes to our society, I think, has the ability to be a leader. So why should we as leaders and as humans be curious? Well, I think that it drives better decision-making. Curious leaders and curious people ask questions, seek diverse perspectives, and challenge assumptions, which help them make informed and creative decisions. It builds stronger relationships. When leaders are genuinely curious about team members or your friends, family, anyone in your circle, what motivates them, understanding how they work best, it builds trust and psychological safety, leading to stronger collaboration and engagement. Curiosity fuels innovation. Curiosity pushes leaders to explore new ideas. We ask questions that might be outside the box, or give the people around us an opportunity to share their creative suggestions. It helps us to embrace change and adapt quickly in a fast-moving world. It keeps organizations from getting stuck in the way we've always done it. I am sure some of you have been in that situation because, you've got fear of, there's a genuine fear of change, but with curiosity and getting everyone on the same alignment, it makes that fear minimized. It also fosters inclusive leadership. Curiosity encourages leaders to listen deeply, suspend judgment, and learn from experiences outside of their own. And that's really a key trait for leadership and team diversity. And I think the final point on this is it models a learning culture. So when leaders are openly curious, it's a signal that it's okay to ask questions. And you don't have to know all the answers. There's probably going to be questions you ask me that I may not know the answers to, but I'll be curious as to why you asked me. It makes me continue to learn, makes any of us leaders continually learn when we are questioned and when we can have that two-way conversation. It creates a culture where growth and experimentation are valued. So what's the value of being curious about your staff and your coworkers? Well, it builds trust and engagement. When we show genuine interest in each other, how we think, what we value, what challenges we face, it makes people feel seen, heard, and respected. That's the foundation of how we build trust and loyalty. Curiosity unlocks potential. It helps leaders discover hidden strengths, passions, aspirations in their team. This allows them us to coach more effectively and delegate more strategically and support professional growth. I'm curious think about one of your favorite leaders. And when you think about that person in your life or someone that's been a mentor to you, how much about that relationship did they learn about you as a person, right? So, and I can speak for personal experience that some of my favorite leaders and mentors really took the time to learn about who I was as a person and how I thought and valued my contributions. It wasn't all about them taking all the oxygen out of the room. There's some leaders out there that think they are great leaders, but they really don't have that self-awareness because they're not incorporating the people around them effectively. So hopefully this will give you some tips about self-evaluation and how you want to present yourself in a leadership or a role as a colleague. The fact that we're curious with our teams, we deal with such a situation in our environment where retention and recruitment can be challenging, right? And to find good talent, it's not always the easiest. We sometimes have to interview, bring people on, and maybe they're a great fit. Maybe the interview process was hugely successful, and maybe it wasn't. Maybe we realized when we've onboarded somebody that maybe they're not quite the right fit for our culture, or maybe they don't have the skills we thought they had and hoped they had. However, when we find those people that are a great fit for our organizations and great team members, we want them to stay. We want people to grow. And being curious and making individuals feel connected to us really helps with retention, right? People are more likely to stay in an environment where they feel understood and appreciated. Leaders who are curious ask what their teams need. I think I know a few people I'm hoping that are on this call that are extremely curious leaders, and they've built successful teams because of that. And we're not just talking about productivity, we're also talking about a human level of connection. And I'll get into that a little bit later with with another, I'll get into that a little more down the line. And it also improves team dynamics. So curiosity reduces those assumptions and those judgments. We're kind of in a challenging environment in society and in our United States of America, right? There's a lot of different personal and political views, and at the end of the day, we're all still human. So how are we trying to find the similarities we have as human beings to build the teams and build the trust, even if we may have differing opinions in other areas of our lives? The curiosity helps us to navigate conflict and to figure out communication styles, which is really important because none of us are really wired the same with how we communicate, and understanding those differences can make us more effective. And also the generational and cultural differences are huge right now in our society. And it helps us to navigate those more skillfully when we're curious.
Tracy, I have a question for you. Everyone has worked for a leader who did not have that curiosity. I've done it, not at ABC, but I've done it in the past. I've been with people in the past. How do you instill that curiosity in someone? And not just leaders need it, but all employees need it, and all people need it. How do you have any thoughts about instilling it? Any hints on that?
Well,
We've
I
talked
think
about the benefits.
that's a great question, Jim. I think that leading by example is always the best way to, and even if you have a leader, yes, have you ever heard the term manage upwards?
Mhm.
So sometimes we have to manage up. Um, and I've learned in being, I've been fortunate in my career to be in all levels of an organization, right? And I think sometimes self-awareness is just really the key, and being told that, hey, sometimes being confronted by the fact that maybe you're not being as curious, and have you thought about asking about me? Sometimes people need that realignment. I can think of an experience when I was very busy in a senior role, and I was in my head thinking about the next project and thinking
Right,
about the
right.
layoffs I had to do. And I remember an employee coming up to me saying, "Gosh, you totally blew me off." And I thought, "Oh my gosh, that's the last thing I would have ever wanted to do to someone." But I think it really made me wake up to be more intentional, that when I'm in front of my teams or my people or our teams, right, we need to be really aware of how we're engaging, and people want to feel included. So I think lead by example.
Yes.
Yeah. Would you agree?
Oh, 100%. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, great, great. So now let's talk about, so I've been talking a lot about employees and coworkers. What about our patients and our clients? Is it important to be curious about them too? I think by nature, a lot of you chose your profession because you genuinely care about people and you want to make a difference, right? The work you do is such you're making a difference in the world for the work you do, right? And so being curious about your patients and your clients is so critical. So a lot of you probably are already wired with a lot of these tendencies anyway, simply because of the career path you chose. But just consider how, your ability to be curious and engage them deepens the understanding of their needs. Um, it helps you listen more what they're needing from you. And you may pick up on nuances of situations that they don't even realize might be connected for their medical care, for their health, just by asking them certain questions and learning about them. It drives service excellence. I think we're always competing and wanting to be the best in our business. So engaging and building that trust and emotional connection with your patients and your clients makes the world of difference, right? And we've got to consider, in this day and age, people may not be getting that kind of support at home, right? And in their workplaces. So the one conversation you have with them in a week or in a month could make the world of difference to their spirits and make them feel valued as humans. And I know that's why a lot of us go in and do the type of work we do on a daily basis.
And we know no patient gives you all of the information in your first conversation. As you're evaluating, you have to dig deeper. You have to dig deeper. You're going to be able to find more information to really provide the best healthcare for those patients.
Yeah, that's a great point for sure. And at the end of the day, I'm guessing, Jim, it makes people better practitioners as well, right?
Oh, completely, completely. I have the opportunity where I speak to the candidates who are getting ready to take our board exams. This is one of the piece of advice I tell them. Questions, ask questions, find more information. You're going to be able to provide, again, better healthcare.
That's great. That's great. Well, Jim, I don't know if I should do this, but do you think we should give everyone a little quiz before we move
Oh,
into
of course we
the next
should,
section?
Tracy. Of course we should. This will
I
be fun.
think so. I'm
This will
gonna
be
take a
fun.
sip of water.
Okay.
Mhm.
This will be fun. We're going to move into a new area right here, right?
We're going to transition. So I've talked a little bit about, well, quite a bit about curiosity. And so there's so many different areas of our businesses that we can focus on curiosity. But we're going to transition into talk about generational diversity and the differences of the generations in the workplace. Have a little fun with some of this. But before that, let's test your knowledge. Some of you may already be subject matter experts. So let's take the quiz.
Okay, I see the poll is up.
Great. So do we read through these, Jim, or do
Yeah, let's
the...
read through them. Why don't we read through them? So the first
Okay.
question is, which generation watched MTV launch in 1981? And I think I know that answer because I was there. And we have all the options there. The second question is, which generation prioritizes work-life balance over salary? That's a great question.
Mm-hmm. It is a great question.
And the third question, which generation prefers face-to-face communication over digital? Moving on to the fourth question, which generation prefers texting over phone calls? I'm not 100% sure I'd be able to pass this poll here.
Yes, I'm not, there's some tricky ones in there.
And the next question, which generation experienced the dot-com boom? If you know it, you know it. And then the final question is, which generation grew up with online learning from a young age? So everyone, feel free to take a few more seconds and go ahead and give us your thoughts on that and see how it works out. Okay, Tracy, I think maybe everyone had enough time for that.
Okay. So I think we're getting our votes tabulated to see where everyone came in on the questions and answers.
They may be surprising.
Uh-huh. I bet you they did really good, Jim. We have a smart group here.
Oh, we have an awesome profession. There's no doubt
Yes,
about that.
very special.
Okay, looks like we're getting the information in. Tracy, do you see that?
Okay, I think our first question was the question about, I'm trying to look at my notes and stay on point here. Which generation watched the MTV launch in 1981?
Right. And we have 65% says Generation X.
Well,
What
I
do you,
think that 65% of our people are very, very smart. Gen X was the answer to that. So good job. We talked
excellent,
about
excellent.
that was excellent. And then question two was the work-life balance.
Yes.
We only had 49% with that one. So we have 50% of you guys that give or take that we're on point with that. So which
So that,
generation appreciates the work-life balance, Jim?
that I think it's Generation Z, Gen Z. Is that right?
Well, actually, they started with the millennials. So yeah, we have it's like
Millennial.
50-50 split, the millennials and Gen Z. Yeah.
Okay, very
Who
good.
prefers face-to-face over digital? You guys were good on this one. 69% of you said the baby boomers. So, yeah. And then,
Then we had the texting question over calling.
yes, I think this one surprised me. What did the answer say? Let's see.
We had 65% say Gen Z.
Yes. Well, you know what's funny about that is when I took the quiz, I always try to take the quizzes first before I look at the answers. And I got this one wrong, even though I've
Did
done
you?
this material over and over again, right? So I would think texting over calling would be Gen Z as well. But actually, it's the millennials that really started preferring the texting over the phone calls and the other forms of communication. So
Very
nice
interesting. Very
try.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, how about the dot-com boom? Who witnessed the dot-com boom?
So the dot-com boom, that was actually, let's see, where I'm looking at
We
the,
have Generation X as 53% respond for
you,
that.
you guys are great. Yeah, 53% of you got that answer right. So Generation X is the group that definitely was involved in the dot-com boom. I'm part of Generation X, so I can remember that, you know. It
Well, I
was
remember it too, but I'm not Generation X.
It was funny. It was funny because that came up. I can remember one of my projects, and those of you that are older or in the Generation X and above will appreciate this. One of the projects I did personally was I opened a large casino in Las Vegas in 1993. And we took 100,000 applications to hire 10,000 people. And in 1993, that was pre-internet, getting people to apply online.
Wow.
And I think, gosh, that doesn't seem like that long ago, but apparently it was. We didn't even, so you could not apply online. So it's been within that recent time that we've been able to make such great advances in recruitment and managing HR paperwork and systems and that. So kind of funny.
Wow, what a story. Now, our sixth question, the online learning generation.
Yes.
We have 74% responded Generation Z.
I think that our 74% are right on point. So congratulations, 74%. You got that right. And as you know, with COVID and all that, we have a lot of students learning online. So thank goodness we had that resource and that we weren't stuck in 1993 when we had COVID hit, you know?
How true, how true. So that leads us all into the multi-generation workplace.
Yes, yes. So I believe you see a little screenshot that talks about our traditionalists, our baby boomers, our Gen X, Gen Y, and Gen Z. So it talks about the ranges that they were born. And keep in mind, these dates, depending on the subject matter expert you're talking to, they will vary slightly, especially as the generations, it seems like the newer generations, there's a couple of years of flex in the days and the year ranges that they put in place for them. But when we look at our traditionalists, our traditionalists are very loyal to the company. We don't have too many people that are traditionalists in our workplaces anymore, but they laid a foundation to move us forward, right? Appreciate sacrifice, hard work. A lot of these individuals grew up in the Depression era, so they valued their dollar, and they worked that once they got a job for life. And then we look at the baby boomers. There's still a lot of baby boomers in our workforce. I would say, and the baby boomers, they kind of grew up in that, post World War II era. There was a lot of change with that generation, and there's a wide range in a baby boomer. If you notice, it's almost 20 years of range of individuals that are considered baby boomers. So I find within that baby boomer generation, there's almost a shift even in the middle of that with belief system and focus on some of their priorities. And then you're going to have the baby boomers that are a little bit on the later edge of the range that are going to lean into the Generation X mindset. And keep in mind, y'all, like this is not to stereotype people. This is to give us generalizations about where mindsets are. And a lot of our mindsets are built by how we grew up, what was going on in the world, the family cultures and the value systems. And so it's not to stereotype, but this is leaning into let's be curious about what individuals may be like in our workplace. Each generation brings strengths, but also faces workplace challenges, and we just want to be mindful of that as we're constructing our teams. And I believe that diversity in the workplace, even with ages, is mission critical. We want different mindsets. Everyone thinks a little differently. And I think it just makes our businesses better if we can create a diverse workforce, even when it comes to looking at the best people to do the jobs and be open-minded to the difference of the diversity of the ages and the generations. So let's go back to, so as I said I'm going to go back a little bit. The traditionalists sometimes are referred to as the silent generation. They're resistant to quick change. And, and they liked the formal face-to-face communications. And then our baby boomers, which I've already covered, they were more family oriented. And think about this, TVs became very popular in that generation. So our newer generations probably have a hard time imagining what the world would be like without a television. But imagine what it was like as a family to have one TV in your house and to sit around that TV and build those family relationships and the differences of connection back then, simply because of how tech was distributed, right? And the baby boomers also really feel comfortable in that hierarchical approach. They believe in the chain of command. So when you're dealing in a workplace with a baby boomer, be mindful that they may have ideas or suggestions that they feel that are good, but they may hold back on sharing those with you because they just feel it might be not respectful if you are in a leadership role over them in the hierarchy. So sometimes it takes a special consideration when you're trying to lead these teams to ask them more direct questions to get their feedback, because they may not be as free to offer those suggestions if they really honor that chain of command. Now, I kind of took a pause there because Generation X is my generation. So who remembers Trapper Keepers, or who remembers Rave Hairspray and the fan and the wings? I didn't have a fan. I had the wings though. Do you remember the hair dryer and the ladies out there? Do you remember blowing the our wings out? Yeah, I had wings. I'm kind of flat today. And then and then who remembers Kmart and the blue light special? I'm waiting to
Yep.
see on the comments. Oh my gosh. So can I share with, I'm making this about me, but I can share with you my first job at 16 was Kmart. I learned the check stand at Kmart, and I was a blue light shopper girl. I had the little blue light on the wheels, and I would roll it into the sock department and announce that for the next 2 minutes, Kmart shoppers, we're gonna have $1 off on all of our tube socks. Who remembers tube socks? Remember the tube socks with the lines around them? Oh my gosh. And you know, and I know I'm very hands, I realize as I'm talking to you all, quite frankly, how I'm usually in front of people. So I'm usually engaging groups. So I realize I'm probably coming across like I'm using my hands a lot because it's hard for me to keep that under control. Anyways, blue light specialists. So what on the other note, we had the fall of the Berlin Wall. We started with mobile technology, right? The tube, someone just posted the tube socks and the Converse. I love that. And who remembers the little shorts? I think those shorts are still around, but remember you'd wear the little shorts with your tube socks? Oh my gosh. Anyways, but what did transition a little bit with Gen X? Well, Gen X was considered the latchkey kid environment, right? Gen X
Right.
often is considered the forgotten generation, right? And I personally didn't have that situation where I was a latchkey child, but I've got a lot of friends that were. So that raised a lot of independence and kind of skepticism. You know, they really learned to be self-reliant, and that generation just likes hard work. And we grew up where the computers started, and email and text messaging was just on the front end for us. So we're kind of in between that transition between non-tech and tech. Okay. So now our millennials, our poor millennials. I think when we look at the screen, I think I have a special place in my heart for millennials, because I think there's a stereotype that millennials get a really bad rap. Yeah. Oh my gosh. And I'm going back, sorry guys, to the comments. I got distracted. Big wheels. Who remembers a big wheel back on our Gen X? Anyway, super cool. So our millennials, you know, they actually, in studies I've seen, the millennials as well as I think the baby boomers really kind of separate into two groups. So I've heard in a few studies that the millennials move along, and then at a certain point in their lives, and usually they say it's their late 20s, either the millennials are going to really focus on career and move forward and be very motivated, or the other group of millennials are really going to kind of be I'm going to stay at home with mom and dad and kind of just be a little more apathetic with their careers. And they say that there's actually a split once that time happens. But millennials worked through, you know, the social media change. Gosh, who remembers, God, what was that before Facebook? What was there was another social media app that was super. Oh my gosh,
Yes.
thank you guys.
MySpace. Yep.
MySpace.
MySpace.
I just got a bunch
Hmm.
of MySpaces. Yes. Who remembers MySpace? I never had a MySpace account, but we noticed how that changed. Social media, I think, has changed us all, right? And there's such positives to it, you know, how we connect with one another. and how we also, can talk to people throughout the world within instant seconds, and that we get that instant gratification, and we can get instant responses to things we put out in the universe. However, that said, I think we all can agree that the types of connection became a little different, right? And so there's that interpersonal connection, interpersonal curiosity maybe has been a bit subdued, maybe because of the social media. Well, yeah, so and I think that when you look at your employee groups and when you look at your colleagues and your coworkers, we need to think about how people receive that information. Because I think that the need for immediate feedback is more important for people that are millennials or younger. They like the feedback from their bosses. They like to hear, they like to get just to hear how they're doing. Where when you look at maybe a Gen Xer or a baby boomer, again, traditionally, stereotyping, I guess, a bit, if they're not called in the boss's office, that's great. I just want to keep busy. I don't want to deal with that feedback. I don't know what the boss wants to say to me. No news is good news on the older range of our generations. And if I'm not getting feedback in our younger generations, that can be very off-putting to me. So when you're looking at building your business, how are we incorporating tools to balance that type of feedback and make sure that we're giving feedback, right? Anyways, so Jim, do you know, I'm sure you know some millennials.
I do.
Yeah.
I have dear friends and loved ones and coworkers, millennials. Yes, I'm a baby boomer, so I'm towards the end of the baby boomers themselves. But I remember everything we've been talking about here today. So I know we're going to move to the next slide, but I have a question for you. So coming from as a baby boomer, let's say all of this is, I know where all of this is going. All of this is going, we all need to work together and we need each other to be successful, which I believe wholeheartedly. But what happens when you get into a situation where you have someone like a baby boomer who says, you know what? I'm the leader here. I'm the supervisor. This is the way I do it. This is the way we are going to work because I say so. How do we get around that? How do we, I mean, what do you suggest?
Well, I think that if the person is in a leadership role, hopefully, so I'm gonna start over. So when we look at that baby boomer, underneath that umbrella, we also have different types of communication styles, right? So
Yes.
we know if that person, so a leader like you just described to me is probably, if you guys have taken a DISC assessment or any of the other tools, is probably more a high D, right? They just want data and they don't really care about the feelings of it all, right?
Right. We have a
They're not
job
as
to do, period.
emotional. And
Yeah.
someone that's more emotionally driven would probably be more intuitive on the value of understanding others, right? So
Yes.
someone with that kind of mindset, it's not that it's a wrong mindset, but they're probably more practical, driven on practicality and data. So I would evaluate how I can approach that person and to talk about business results. And because we recognize that when we look at a diverse workforce and when I go over these things, it's to kind of have a little bit of fun, right? With the hairspray and the rave, but also really to get that we are a bit different. And it's trying to understand that and have empathy or maybe empathy, but sympathy or understanding and embrace it. And so
Accept
I
that.
think,
Yes.
yeah, I think with a person like that, you would just need to, I would approach it where I would look at the results and look at, um, that's great that it's your way or the highway, but understand what you may be leaving behind if you want to move forward in that direction.
Very good. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so we have now our Generation Z. I've got a few nieces that are Gen Z. They're talking about this new generation and looking at the environment. And a lot of the Gen Zers are very focused when they spend their retail dollar to look at recycled items and such. So a lot of thrift shopping and a lot of kind of creative spending when they spend their own money. So there's a definitely difference in Gen Z. Gen Z goes to mom, dad, auntie or uncle and says, hey, I just need some cash to go buy things. They're okay with that, but their own money that they earn, they're more conservative with how they spend it. And they're a little different. They have a global focus, our Gen Zers do. And they are entirely dependent on technology. So they were born from a young age where they were in their smartphones and their smart watches and their handheld communication devices from the time they were little. They've seen a lot of remote work, and not so much probably in your industry, but there's been a shift in the longevity they spend with the organization and within their career, because that they tend to have a lower attention span. They want to move around, and they
Right.
don't necessarily rely on their goals may not line up as much as the importance of saving money, because they've seen their parents and their grandparents work so hard. There's a different value put on work-life balance and exploring their interests that seems to be more aligned with what they're looking for in this generation. Have you noticed that, Jim?
Oh, without a doubt. I'm opening my vest here. I have children from the age of 34 down to 15. So I have a mix of all this. And without a doubt, I see that. Yes.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, and I'm sure you guys have seen it too. And let's see, I think I've got a question out there. I don't know if I should jump in. As a manager, how do you give feedback? So Shauna asked a question. As a manager, how do you give positive feedback as a Gen Y to a baby boomer? He doesn't like to be thanked for going above and beyond his job duties. Is there a better way to show our gratitude towards that generation? What a thoughtful question, Shauna. That's a great question. I would question, or I'd be curious about this, and that is this person, this gentleman, I think you said it was a man. Yeah, um, sometimes what I've learned in my career, to kind of is when I was a younger HR professional, we had this philosophy in big gaming and customer service environments that it needed to be this cheerleader. We needed to be these rah, recognize everyone for great things. And if it was everyone's birthday, we would need to announce everyone's birthday, right? We'd put lists together, we'd make sure everyone got recognized on their birthday. And when I was younger, I'd have people come up to me and say, Tracy, I really don't want to be recognized for my birthday. And I just took it as a line of humility. I thought, they're kidding. They really want to be recognized. So we would really recognize them. I have learned as I've gotten wiser and older that there are genuinely people that it makes them uncomfortable, regardless of their generation, of how they're receiving feedback, right? So I think in the spirit of what you're saying, Shauna, with this gentleman, perhaps it's generational, because like I said, generationally, we've got that situation where they really genuinely just like to come to work. They don't necessarily need a lot of recognition, but there's also personal preferences on recognition. So it's probably a blend of that for this person. So I think it goes back to curiosity. Just because we want to recognize them and it makes us feel good, if he's genuinely not comfortable with that, ultimately by you accommodating that is the best way to recognize him. So it's really just being curious and asking him about it and
Very
believing.
good.
Does that make sense? Okay, good. Oh, you're welcome, Shauna. You're welcome.
Now, with time constraints, I will probably move on to the next slide. Are we ready for that?
Sure. We're
Okay,
ready. And it's
awesome.
funny because Samantha just put out to me, what do you think Generation Alpha's characteristics may entail? And I think that's our next slide. So we'll get
Perfect.
on
Thank you for the
that. It's 2
transition,
slides
Samantha.
away.
Yeah.
It's coming up. It's coming up. So take a look at the age spectrum. In the spirit of time, I guess we do have to get moving here. So I'll let you guys take a look and just read over that. I won't talk about that too much. But you can see they kind of highlight the differences in the 4.
And that's good information. It breaks it all down. That's good.
Yes. Yeah, it's a good summary slide. All right, so who is Generation Alpha? Guys, they are ready to rock and roll in our businesses. So I thought this is funny. Generation Alpha, I've heard that some studies say it starts in 2010, some say 2012, and they're capping it at 2025, right? Maybe 2024, again, depends on the study. So the age range as of today would be anywhere from newborns to about 15 or 16 years old. And the parents are primarily millennials. Okay. And I learned this and preparing for this today, I never heard this before, but the reason they're called alpha is because it starts after, it's a new series and it loops back to the Greek alphabet. So since we just did Gen Y and Gen Z, alpha becomes next in line. So who knew, right? Now you know. What do they value, or what are they anticipating that these Gen Zers are going to value? Well, they're not in the workforce yet, but early trends suggest that they're going to look for everything is going to be tech integrated. So be mindful, even your recruitment processes. So as an HR, as a business owner or a business leader, be thinking about how you're going to attract employees of this generation. And hopefully your systems are up to speed with technology, right? They're digital natives from birth. Think about this, AI, they've grown up with AI, right? So, they want the information quickly, concisely, and the attention spans are going to be significantly shorter than we're accustomed to. We've seen that trend, I think, through the last couple of years, but it really is happening more and more now. Personalization, they've grown up with highly personalized content. Think about all their videos, YouTube, everything is so personalized. You've got babies that have YouTube channels. So they likely they're likely going to favor tailored feedback, and learning and career development is going to be specifically tailored to them. And they're raised in a climate of being socially conscious. They definitely want work environments that are going to be ethical, and they still are going to want flexibility. They grew up with COVID. So managing work-life balance and flexible schedules, that sort of thing is going to be important to them. And I think where you are all probably focused with education and keeping on top of trends, micro-learning is critical. So this hour presentation or our conversation for our next generation probably wouldn't fly very far. They're probably going to want 15-minute snippets of information and then move on to learn the next thing. So that's just something to be mindful of.
We do have educators attending this session, and the alpha generation is going to be coming up relatively soon, and they're going to be in your seats in your schools. So we all need to learn, how are we going to handle this? How are we going to deal with this? What adjustments do we have to make, right?
Yep, yep. They're going to have a preference to video and emojis and quick hitting stuff.
Hmm.
And so I think let's see. Yeah, and actually, because of the information they can get with AI and with the way they're learning, some of them may be expected to start their careers a bit sooner than historically. So there might be more of a drive to get into the workforce and having more career-oriented jobs at a younger age is what they're anticipating here. So to your point, it's also good to start reaching out to these students and these when they are at that age, to prepare them to come into our workplaces, maybe
Well,
hitting some
and
high schools
what
yeah.
what a great point. This is Pop Month. This is our career awareness program, and this is Pop Month for the month of March. And we are reaching out to these high schoolers. We are reaching out to the people in the bachelor's programs. We're reaching out to all these people. We want them in our profession. They're intelligent young people, and we need them in the profession.
That's a great point. Yep. Yep. Well, and consider this, they have never grown up without voice assistants like Alexa and Siri,
Exactly.
right?
Okay, so Tracy, let's keep on going. Let's move on to the next area.
Great. So how do we bridge these generational gaps? Well, we thrive on, bringing each other together and celebrating the gaps. So let's foster curiosity, adapt our communication style, recognize the strengths, encourage knowledge and sharing, and create an inclusive workplace culture. And open, curious conversation is the key to reducing any kind of workplace friction and just creates a positive environment for us all. And there's a great opportunity for cross-generational mentorship, looking at how I can maybe pair up some of our people and coach them to work together and learn from each other.
It may be challenging, but it's going to be better for everyone in the final product with their handling our patients if we all do this.
Yeah, yeah. And then when we look at wellness in the workplace, and I won't have a lot of time to dive into this, but I would have felt remiss on the next slide if we would have missed the point of talking about as a business model when we're looking at how we're structuring our business and we're looking at recruitment and retention. Really be mindful that sometimes a generalized approach for our programs, like in benefits and all that, may not be the best approach. As we talked about today, each generation has a different preference in communication style. We've got to start building a strong foundation when it comes to, before we can even get into the details of generational differences, have we built clear expectations for our teams? Do we have clear job descriptions, clear performance metrics? Are we clear in the foundational tools? Because we already see that some people, like our Gen Xers and our baby boomers, like that structure. But it's important across the board to understand how the people understand what they're required to do. But then are we evaluating how each person wants to receive feedback, and even employee benefits. I know for many of my years, we looked at families, people that are family planning and how to structure time off programs there. But as we have this aging workforce, we've got a lot of senior people that may be dealing with elder parents and elder care and time away from work. And maybe we'd prefer to be at work than dealing with having to take our parents to the doctor. And maybe there's systems we could create to help, creative benefits we can give to our people to get them in the office and give them some support when they're at home. These are just some
Wonderful
thoughts to be
point.
mindful of. I know we don't have a lot of time. That's probably a whole other conversation. Anyways, so what are our key takeaways from today? First of all, I thank you all for your attention. But curiosity, I really believe curiosity is the key to better workplace and relationships. And let's remember, every generation brings strengths, and we need to be open to learning from one another. Bridge gaps by adapting communication and fostering inclusion. And when in doubt, ask questions, don't assume.
And reach out to those other generations as you're working for them. Find out what those strengths are. That is so important.
Yep. And hey, what are some good takeaways you could take? I'm going to give you some action steps, guys. I'm going to challenge you all now. So thank you for your attention. Now I'm going to probably put you to work. Consider asking one curiosity-driven question at each team meeting. Even something like, who's your favorite band and why? Something fun. It can be social. It doesn't have to be, it could be something very lighthearted. What's your favorite pizza topping? Schedule team building carousel of progress or a time capsule activity. I just did something with the team just this past week where I had them break into groups by their generation. They brainstormed and did a visual presentation about what was special in their generation, and we rolled it out and they presented it to their whole team. And that was super fun. They got such a kick out. So those are simple things you could bring into your work environments to build that connection. And look at your wellness programs. Learn about the communication styles of others. So there's different tools. There's the DISC assessments. There's the Myers-Briggs. There's a lot of programs out there to look at different communication styles, which helps with this generational conversations. And then ask one team member or one coworker in a week, what's something you wish I understood about you? I think we had someone mention about the gentleman that didn't want the recognition. Well, that's an important question. Understand what your people really want on a one-on-one.
Tracy, I have a great question here for you. We haven't talked about this yet. What's your recommended approach to cultivating intergenerational mentorships? You mentioned earlier about a mentor. What about that?
Well, I think that it builds teams, and your approach to include people in the workplace and making a real difference, I think adds value, right? So we all like to feel the pride and that we have individual value that we contribute to the team.
By all means.
So I think the best approach is to have one of these meetings where we talk about generational diversity and the people on your team, or even not the people that are so open about this, pull them aside and ask them if they'd like to be a coach or mentor. And it's just assign them and start letting them do breaks together or lunches together and really learn from one another, even in the workplace. So I don't know if that really answers your question. I think just pair people up.
Sure. I also have, I have a question here from John, and John says something that I certainly understand. People are often overworked today. Team building seems to be a time killer and not productive. Now, what is your opinion? Before you give your opinion, I will give a little perspective from ABC's opinion. Our team at ABC, we're extremely busy. There's no doubt about it. Not more busy than everyone else on this Pop Talk, but we're very busy every single day. I will say that at quarterly, at least quarterly, ABC pulls out, our leadership pulls out some sort of team building. It can be just a meeting, it can be an event that we do, it can be an online event, it could be something. And when you see it pop up, just speaking by myself, I see it pop up going, oh goodness, now I have to try to fit that into my schedule. But I tell you, when it is over, I go, daggone it, that was a really good effort. And that really helped everyone. So I'm of the old school where I go, oh, are we really doing that? But when it occurs, it's really beneficial for everyone involved. Your thoughts on that?
I think that the feedback we got about it being super, there's a lot of work to do. I honor that, right? We know that we're trying to do more with less, right? And so I'm not trying to minimize that feedback because I know it's important feedback. I think, Jim, to your point though, when you consider the team, I think team building activities sound very cumbersome. It sounds like a lot of work. And I
Yeah,
think we often overthink those things, right? And I don't mean that with any disrespect. I think that, if you just decide as a team to go out and volunteer one evening at a nonprofit and go in and just do something, it's about building trust and curiosity and relationships. So these team building activities don't necessarily need to be so robust, but I think, I hope that on the back end of it, the relationships that are built and the trust and loyalty that are built within the teams are going to make the work more fun and going to make the work flow more productive because we're going to support one another once we respect one another. So the work will still be a lot, but I actually would challenge that sometimes when teams are more cohesive, the workload may actually become less because
I
of
think you're right.
yeah,
You were
yeah.
exactly right. Okay, here's a question for you. How do I suggest or how do I ask a boss who's a baby boomer or a Generation X for feedback? I can't fix my mistakes unless someone tells me what I did wrong. I need that feedback.
Good for that question. I think it's important for that person to go to the boss and ask them for the feedback if they haven't already. There's not much and just be persistent, and actually explain why they need the feedback, why it's important to them for their growth. And I would be hopeful that most people would really listen to that once they understood it.
Very good. So I take one thing from your sharing all day today is, man, get that communication working. Get the better communication you have, the better off you're going to be, the better productive you're going to be in your whole team, right?
Yes, I agree. It's about that. The communication is mission critical. I think that most organizations, the ones that thrive, have excellent feedback loops. And it's not doesn't mean it always has to be positive feedback, right?
Right.
But there's at least the conversations are taking place. But those are scary to have sometimes. So if anyone needs support in navigating those conversations, I know Jim, you're great at it. I'm always here to support that as well.
Excellent. Tracy, we have our last slide here. You have the quote here and walk us through the diagram here. I
So I
like it a
thought
lot.
this, yeah, I thought this was a neat little diagram to show where we are with the different generations and how there really is some overlap, but we're all connected. So that diagram shows that no matter what we're doing, we're all connected, we all bring value, and we can just lead to further excellence by really understanding one another. And I love this
Excellent.
quote, I lead with curiosity. So when in our mindset, when we're approaching a conversation, sometimes we have to be intentional. I lead with curiosity, speak with clarity, and connect with purpose. And I believe if we lead with that mantra for ourselves, we'll create really healthy work environments.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. See, we're coming to the close of our session here today with respect for everyone's time. I seriously want to thank and extend a huge thank you to you, Tracy, for sharing your expertise with us today. I also want to thank all of you for participating in discussion, all of the attendees. This is a fantastic group that we have here with us. Now, a link to the quiz for the continuing education credit will be in the chat, okay? And as I said before, this Pop Talk is one of a series of 3. If you missed the first 2 Pop Talks, and they were Tapping into Talent and You're Hired, you can find them in continuing education session on ABC's website. That is abcop.org, abcop.org, or via the link in the chat here. We've come to the conclusion of our session. I want to thank you again, Tracy. I want to thank all of you for attending, and we appreciate you joining this Pop Month for us here, and I hope you have a really wonderful day. Thank you again.